Should I include my spouse in my trauma healing? All right, you guys, welcome back to another episode of the Therapy Brothers. Today is the Therapy Bro. It's just me today, but I do have a good guest, so I'm excited about that. Um, Tyler, Tyler's off. He's fishing, and he's having a great summer. So he earns it. He works so hard, and I hope he's doing well up there. Um, so I really appreciate you guys being here. Um, and I'm just going to dive into it with our guest here today. So we have Harris on today, and I got to say, I really like his name. It's my son's middle name, and it's my mom's maiden name. So I don't know if we're family or not, or if we're related. But Harris, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Brandon. Glad to be here. Sorry Tyler couldn't join us, but we can live vicariously fishing with him after the show.
Yeah, he better catch some big ones to make it worth it for missing. So, um, all right, Harris, if you could just kind of give me a little bit of what's going on with you, share a little bit of the background, and we'll just kind of go from there.
Sure. So I have been in recovery for a little over 20 years, sober from drugs and alcohol and working an S program during that 20 plus years. I've
Good
had
job.
I've had, when I started, I had 7 years of good sobriety in the S program. I relapsed for 3 years, came back in, had another 3 years, relapsed for four, and came back in just over 11 months ago. And my wife, bless her heart, has been through two. So this is the second relapse she's been through and has been committed to our coupleship in our marriage. And obviously, having two relapses, I have to ask myself, like, what have I missed or what am I missing?
Right.
And so we embarked upon this time around the couple centric focus that I guess is a relatively new thing in recovery from sexual trauma and sexual addiction. And that is working as a couple. Obviously, I have my program, she works her program, but we've been working a program together with an APSAT, a couples-based therapist, and doing couples meeting, a regular sort of couples home group. And that has been invaluable for my recovery and understanding where I may have went wrong in the past. And it's certainly changed our relationship 180 degrees from where it's been. So my question for you was, I'm now starting through some of the literature, some the book Going Deeper and looking at my core emotional trauma, which started as a young boy. We can get into that if that's important or necessary. But do I include my wife in that recovery and that work? So that's really the reason for my call and
Hmm.
get your thoughts on that.
This is a great question because what we see a lot of times is we see the issues come up a lot of times in the relationship. So the pain point is the relationship. And so someone will come in and say, oh, we don't have trust. My spouse is mad at me, and the reality is that's the symptom of something deeper that's going on. And what the couple a lot of times wants to do is really focus in on couples work in order to try to make things better. But what has to happen is that deeper work. So you can find some success, you can navigate, you can learn how to navigate some things better. But if you haven't done that deeper work, then you're still missing a huge piece of recovery. So I really appreciate this question. Um, I want to ask you when you say include her in your trauma work, what do you mean by include her? Like what that mean?
Well, it would mean, well, let me step back. So, in my previous attempts at recovery in this particular marriage, I'm not sure she really knew about my core issues. I mean, I'm aware of them. I've certainly done, a lot of work over the years in understanding why I am in the situation I'm in, but I don't know that she's not been privy to my sexual abuse as a child, how that manifested in my early adolescence, and all of that. So when I say include her, it's not that we do the work together, but that she is, if you will, an informed participant, or including her. And this is what I discovered this week, or this is what I've learned about,
Gotcha.
that week, if that makes sense.
Yeah. What would be the risks to that? Why would how could that
Well,
be
first,
problematic?
for me, as an addict, right, I have not been good at sharing anything real, um,
Hmm.
in my years, particularly in this relationship. And so the fear is it too much? Does it freak her out? Does it make her run? Does it scare her? Um, because I don't know how much she knows or wants to know. Uh,
Gotcha.
so
Um, I see. So, like, you're worried that you might freak her out a little bit.
yeah, because it's pretty dark, ugly stuff.
Hmm. Do you think it could help her understand you better and make more sense of the things that have gone on?
But that's my hope, right? That's
Yeah.
definitely my hope. And yes, I do believe that, but I also cherish this relationship, and am eternally grateful that she's even willing to stick it out after
Yeah.
two huge betrayals in the 15 years we've been married. So I don't want to put too much on her, if that makes sense.
Yeah, good for you. Trying to be aware of that and not like unload a bunch of stuff on her. Um, so I want to get to the actual question here, but I just want to kind of ask some questions first before we get to the actual question. Do you feel it's interesting you said because I'm an addict, I have a hard time like sharing some things. And it's interesting because they say the opposite of addiction is connection, right? But then it's like, well, okay, but how close do I actually want to, or how open do I actually want to be because I might get rejected? And should you open up to your spouse? Should you tell your spouse everything? Should you talk about all of your trauma? The the question is are they a safe person to hold that space for you to process that? Do you understand what I'm saying, Harris?
Yeah. Yeah. And I would say yes. I believe without question she is. I mean, we went through a therapeutic disclosure. We did the polygraph. We did, all the protocol, right? And that has significantly changed the dynamic of our relationship. We do a weekly check-in. We talk about triggers, her triggers, my triggers, how I can, I've done quite a bit of work over these last couple of months about empathy, feeling empathetic and understanding her triggers and how deep the betrayal was both times, but particularly this last time. So, long-winded way of saying I do trust that she won't reject me, and that she will listen. It's just unusual, or it's not comfortable for me, or hasn't been, to bring anybody, but obviously my wife and my spouse is the person I'm closest to in the world, into that inner circle of um, this crazy mind that's been an addict for 20 plus years,
So
roughly.
Harris, um I want to ask you like try to be stop and think about this and be as honest as you can. And maybe it's somewhere in the in between. But is your hesitancy in bringing her into see all of these things and to do this work? Is it more about protecting her, or is it more about protecting you?
I'm thinking.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, my gut says it might be more about protecting me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're with a woman who's been through disclosures, and she's been through hell and back, and she's still like there for you,
Yeah.
right? And she's also sounds like and I don't know your wife, I've never met her, but she also sounds like a person who's willing to also do work. Like she's doing therapy and she's stepping into things, um and
Yeah, and
so
she's in recovery, I can tell you that, and has worked a program and knows how to work a program. So yes.
yeah. So I want to get to the very question that we asked, which is, should I include my spouse? Uh, in order to heal trauma, you need to process and get honest with the pain. And so, for anybody, this is why group therapy is so valuable. Because if you can get in a group where you can be very vulnerable and authentic and just talk about your deepest pain, you can start to process it and move it and heal it. If you just isolate in your pain and in your trauma, and you have nobody to talk to, then you're not going to have a place to process and actually move that pain. So, should you include your spouse? It will be, and I'm speaking in general. It would be really nice to be able to for most people, because your spouse is hopefully the person closest to you, and sometimes your spouse is not the best person to do all that work with. And the reason it really depends on their ability, and their recovery to hold that space for you. If they're early on in their recovery process and they're just swirling in betrayal and pain, they might not have much in their bucket to give you in terms of like holding your space. And that's where you go to your 12-step groups or your therapy groups to find that type of support. But down the road, as you're doing this work, and if they're doing their work, then hopefully you become an asset for each other, and to get deeper and deeper and more real and more authentic and more vulnerable. And the more you do that, the more healing you'll experience. And as you know, Harris, as I'm talking to you, the thing to really gauge is, why are we not going deeper? Is it my fear? Is it I? Is it, and there is an opportunity for you to pull her in that will really help your own healing, because you'll actually learn how to sit in that vulnerable space, which will, that in and of itself is like the healing medicine to actually start to shift and desensitize the trauma that you've had. So I'm saying a lot right now, Harris. What are you hearing me say?
So, well, a couple things. The aspect of being in a group, um, being helpful for anyone, but in my particular case, to sort of process where it's safe and there's like-minded people. And we've experienced that, my wife and I, in this couples meeting that we
Mm-hmm.
attend on a weekly basis, where we have, I don't know, 20 couples on a Zoom call, and it's an addict and the a non, right? The
Uh-huh.
non-addict, the betrayed partner. And you really, one of the tenets of that meeting is we can hear more from other people's betrayed partners than we can hear our own betrayed partner, meaning it's more meaningful coming. So,
Interesting.
and that has been true for us, and it has, I want to say, revolutionized our relationship. And so, to take that a step further, I think it would be very helpful for me, and I assume for her, to have her, I don't know how, but to have her involved as I go into the muck, if you will, of why I ended up where I did. I mean, I know intellectually why I'm an addict, and And, I tell people in meetings, I could write you a paper on why I'm an addict, but getting into the core emotions of what that did to me is something I haven't really done. And I believe is why I've relapsed, because two things. One, I didn't do the recovery program in conjunction with my wife or include her in that process. And two, I never really got to the core, uh, shame-based um, upbringing that led me to, check out with my addiction.
Yeah, there's a Patrick Carnes has a in his research he found that sex addicts have four core beliefs that they have, and one of them is if they really knew me, they wouldn't love me or accept me. And so a sex addict, what they'll do is they'll try to manipulate or hide from the reality in order to still be accepted or loved. And so it's interesting because what I'm hearing you say, Harris, is like, I still hear that in you of that fear of like, oh my gosh, if I actually really told her some of these things, she might be disgusted or scared, or like if she if she really knew me, would she love me? And that's what I'm hearing coming from you. Can you see that?
Yes, 100%. And, I check that box that Patrick Carnes talks about. I have my own phrase. It's I'm a worthless piece of poop.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And so how do you change that belief? Do you know how?
No, that's what you're going to tell me.
Well, I always say the cave you fear to enter is holds the treasure that you seek. And so if you want to find out that you're not a worthless piece of poop, if you want to find out that you are actually loved even with all of the things and everything, you have to take the risk. You have to do the opposite thing of what your addict part has done for years and years and years, which is do everything to avoid that exile part being seen. So, like, I'll give you some examples, and some of them aren't good examples, because there is risk to this. There's vulnerability, but I can't tell you how many times I've worked with couples, and they've gotten better, and each partner's safer, and there's this big secret. There's this big piece of trauma that's just overwhelmingly terrifying, and the one partner finally says, I'm ready to disclose. I'm going to tell my partner about it. And they go and they tell their partner, and their partner is just full of compassion and just understanding, and just like their heart breaks for them because of all the pain they've been in for all these years about that piece of trauma. And so think what happens in that moment. So the person who's disclosing is thinking like, "Oh my gosh, if they really knew." And here I go, I'm going to say it. And it's met with that compassion. It's like, "Whoa, this is like they love me more. They're more connected to me. They see me. They love me in spite of these experiences that I've had." What? I don't know what to do with this because it goes against everything that I've told myself for years and years and years. And it's a powerful healing moment for them. But Harris, I got to tell you, like as I'm saying this, it sounds to me like your wife is primed to be that type of partner who can hold that compassion and that space for you. Seems like it to me. What do you
Yeah,
think?
she is. I mean, I will tell you in this latest um, disclosure and relapse coming out of it, she's a good recovering addict, and
Mm-hmm.
she looked for her part. And a lot of her friends told her, "You don't have any part. This is not your thing." And she said, "Well, I had my suspicions, I had these feelings that something wasn't right, and I didn't follow
Uh,
that intuition. So my part, small though it may have been, was I probably could have interrupted this sooner had I, um, so to speak, put my foot down, or at least asked the right questions instead of. So
Interesting.
long-winded, she's willing to help and to facilitate my recovery, because obviously someone who's been through double betrayal and is still working on the relationship. I mean, everything other than this, Brannon, in our relationship, and it's a big thing, but is has been magical. I mean, that's why we're still trying to work at it. So I think I feel very strongly that she's willing. I think it's more, am I?
Yeah, yeah. I'm reminded of a story. My sister, one day we were little kids, and she was just started crying like hysterically, and we were saying, what's the matter, like what's going on, what's the matter, and she wouldn't tell us. She was like, no, I can't tell you, it's like the worst thing I've ever done, it's so bad. And this went on for hours, and um finally, like we I was telling her, I remember telling her, like, it doesn't matter what it is, just tell us, like, stop crying, and she looked she like faced us, and she looked up and she said, I swallowed a button. um and this is why this is interesting, Harris, and I think it's applicable, and I mean, it's apples and oranges, but I remember my first thought when she said that was, all of that pain and anguish and crying because you swallowed a button? Like, I feel so bad that you've been through so much today. Like that, it's horrible that you've had to feel all of that guilt and all those things. And I know swallowing a button is different than the trauma that you've experienced. I'm not saying it's the same. But the point being, as somebody who loved my sister, my biggest concern wasn't that, she did something, in her childish mind, it was really naughty and bad to swallow a button. She did. I wasn't worried about that. I was worried about all the pain that she was in because she felt like she did something so wrong. Do you see the difference?
I do, and it brings up a story for me of making a nine-step amends many, many, many years ago to a family member, and my perception of how I hurt this particular family member was completely wrong. And I had held this belief for 30 years that I had done something horrific to this family
Interesting.
member. And then you go to make amends, and the family member, their perception was, well, that's not how I saw it. It was something
All those years, Harris.
correct, like right, holding that baggage when there was. So to your point, I'm coming around to um, it's probably will be, my intuition tells me it'll be really helpful for both of us, for the relationship, but also for me, to include her as much as she is comfortable being included.
Yeah. And you're like, that fear is going to come up and say, no, 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 like, don't. Um, but I wouldn't be encouraging you to do this. And I just have a small little snippet of what's going on in your relationship. But from the things I hear, it sounds like she's somebody who can be. I mean, you're already checking in all the time and connected and doing this couples workshop. Like, you're already down the road of building that relationship so it can be an asset for you in recovery. And it's kind of a catch 22, because this isn't really about the relationship. This is about your own individual healing, and yet it will help the relationship. The more vulnerability you can practice with her, the more you're going to be able to get it out and realize you're loved. but and the more she'll be able to see the real you, who you actually are, and love the real you. Um, I I want you to speak more, Harris, if you would, to the fear. Like, what are you so afraid of? Like, what is the fear that she's going to be disgusted, scared? Like, just speak to that a little bit.
Well, I don't think that there's anything. I'm not afraid that she's going to be disgusted or run screaming out the house and,
Okay.
divorce me the next week. I think it's more the fear of um sorry, there's a knock at the door.
Really
Come
fine.
back later. Come back later. Sorry about that,
You're okay.
Brandon. Um, it's more a fear of me seeing the real me. I don't,
Yeah.
it's hard to put into words. Um, because look, I'm not a young man. This has been around for since I was 9 years old. And so opening the wound or the can or pulling back the curtain, um, like I know she's not going to run away
Mm-hmm.
um and yet no one's ever looked at this um side of me or part of me. And so who knows what's going to happen.
I, th-
I
I
know I'm
th-
rambling. I'm probably making no sense, but
no, you're making actually a lot of sense. I think you're being very honest. And because what I'm hearing you say is, uh, I'm almost hearing you say that I'm almost scared to go and do this deep recovery work. And it's almost like there's it would be really nice if your wife wasn't a safe person. If she wasn't, but she is, and you have all these opportunities and resources available to you to actually go deep now. And I think Harris, that if you really, really want like full recovery, you've got to turn and face this beast. There's no way around it. And your wife is giving you opportunity to support you to face that beast, right? But I'm hearing you say like, but I don't know if I dare. That's kind of what I'm hearing. Is that
yeah,
accurate?
I think that's accurate. And look, I do want to fully face this beast because I have very clear evidence that what I've done in the past doesn't work. And what's the saying? I know I have another relapse. I don't know if I have another recovery in me.
Yeah.
Uh, and I know that I don't. And look, being out there in active addiction is no fun. Um,
No.
um, and it gets worse each time because I've done it twice. So that's not something I want to do or go back to. And I now know that in order to not do that, there are a couple of things I need to do. One is to include my wife in the recovery process, and that means the whole full disclosure that we've done, working as a couple with a couples focused therapist on, how I got to where I am, and addressing the core emotion, the core trauma that led me to do what I did.
How, in what ways have you addressed that trauma? Or have you?
Well, I've done in my history, I've done some EMDR, which has been really helpful.
Okay.
I've sort of written out what happened. Like it took me a long time to even remember what the core trauma was. And I guess part of my fear is, do I have all the information? Or is it just a little bit? Was it worse than I remember?
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't remember when I first got into recovery, it had all been blotted out. And
Mm.
through work and different techniques, I got to I think, the bulk of it, but that may be part of my fear is like, did I miss something? Like, was there more?
Right. What else might come up?
Correct.
Right.
Yeah.
But you have done some work, like you've done some EMDR. So you haven't been unwilling to go address some of this, right?
Right.
Um, but you feel like there's more to go.
Yes, there's more to go. And the reason I say that is because, look, I work a good program, and I have worked a good program, and I lost my sobriety twice. So what did I miss, or what did I not address that allowed me to, to go back out there? And I think it's the stuff we've been talking about.
You're asking the right question, Harris. You're a wise man. Because I would guess too that there is stuff that the first round of EMDR, you probably processed and desensitized some pretty important things, but there's more work to go. So, do you know how to do that work to address that trauma beyond EMDR?
No, I mean, I'm working with someone who a therapist who has training in that, but no, I mean, I don't. I've tried all kinds of different modalities, I guess you would say, but
Yeah. To me, I love EMDR, and I mean my clinic specializes in EMDR and trauma work, and I love it. It's great. And I think oftentimes, more times than not, the trauma healing needs to take place outside of a therapy office. And the reason is because your head, your mind is the thing that has been trying to avoid you really addressing the trauma. And so when you go to a therapy office and you sit across from somebody, what do you do?
I talk
Yeah,
out of my head.
we talk. And guess what we have to use when we talk? We use our brains. We use our, we're like trying to talk it out. And I like EMDR because EMDR, if you've done it right, you don't talk much. You just kind of go with that. Um, you're just processing, and you're actually having an experience. You're moving your eyes or whatever. And the therapist's job, if they're a really good EMDR therapist, is to get out of the way, is to not like throw their own stuff in, their own analysis of this or that, or get out of the way of the process. And this applies to not just EMDR, but things like some really good trauma healing breath work can just work wonders to move this stuff and to bring stuff out and bring stuff up. And so just we call it experiential activities that can actually shift things. I was listening to Bessel van der Kolk talk, and yeah, I don't know if you know who he is, but
I
he
don't,
wrote,
but I just made a note.
yeah, it's a kind of a funny name, Bessel van der Kolk. He wrote a book, The Body Keeps the Score, and he studied trauma healing for I don't know, like 40 years or something. He's one of the leading experts on it, and both him and Gabor Mate agree that in order to heal your trauma, there's like it doesn't happen with like cognitive behavioral therapy or talk therapy. And the thing that Bessel lists off, if I can remember these off the top of my head, one was yoga, which is interesting because yoga is just learning how to sit in pain. It's learning how to be grounded. It's having an experience. One was psychodrama therapy. So I won't get too into what that is, but
I'm familiar with
if
psychodrama.
okay, yeah. So psychodrama, which is having an experience, right? It's being in that moment and having an experience. You're having emotions, you're having feelings happen. One is psychedelics. Bessel van der Kolk talked about that, and that's one of my favorite modalities. And I believe it works wonders if it's done right. Um, Psychedelics, yoga, psychodrama, um, oh, and EMDR. He mentioned EMDR. So, like in all of those things, they have something in common, and it's unburdening those protective parts, or it's an ego. Um, you can let your ego off the hook for a minute, and you get to be in the experience. That's what actually starts to shift your trauma. And so I, I love group therapy. I love talk therapy. Talk therapy is really beneficial for a lot of reasons. But when it comes to releasing some of this trauma that's just holding you down, it takes surrendering to those experiences. And like I was talking about earlier, when you open up to your wife and you have an experience of feeling her compassion, that will shift your belief of self. That will heal your trauma. And so working with her to do that, I think you should definitely pursue. But I would also consider, Harris, I think with all of the systems that you have in place, you've learned really well how to manage your addiction. What I think you're not doing is actually going to heal it fully. I shouldn't say that. You've done a lot of work, but
But I point taken. It's part of the reason why I, clicked on the link and signed up to talk to you. Um, and I've done psychodrama, I've done psychedelics, but not that was
not
back in the
not in
70s.
the
That
healing trauma way.
not in the healing trauma way. So I'm a little averse to that. But it's been my point is it's been 20 plus years since I've done some of this, and maybe it's time to revisit some of these modalities now that I'm older and wiser, or through um, the initial stages of recovery. So
Yeah, I think you're so prepped for it. Like with your relapses and with getting back in recovery, and like you are good at setting up recovery capital. Like you're really good at having systems and people and support, and so you are primed right now, Harris. And part of you might be thinking like, oh shoot, like, dang it, I've gotten myself to a point where I know there's a step further to go,
and there's no
but
excuse.
there's no excuse. Like I've done so well up to this point. So am I going to go there? Am I going to actually go face this? And I don't think you would be on this call with me talking about this topic right now unless you really knew that you are ready for that next step. I mean, you were talking about what was the book you're reading? Digging Deep,
Going deeper.
Going Deeper. You're reading Going Deeper, right? Um, and so I think you're ready. It's just a matter of taking those steps and having those experiences. There's opportunity. Like I have access to all the things I just listed off from, except for the yoga. I don't run a yoga studio, but I'm sure
Well,
you could
I
find.
practice yoga and actually started yoga when I got into recovery.
Oh,
So
I love it. That's awesome.
yeah.
So you already got that one going. You've done the psychodrama, EMDR. You have some experience with the experientials, the breath work. I could get you access to, or you can find that wherever you're at. And so there's opportunity. You can find these resources and actually do them. They're there for the taking. It's just a matter of that there's going to be that I call it your threshold guardian, but there's going to be that fear voice come up and be like, I'm scared of what I might find. I do I really want to do this, right? So, what are you thinking, Harris? As I'm saying all this,
Um, what am I thinking? I'm thinking I knew the answer before I came on.
yeah, you did.
It's nice to get the reinforcement. Although I will say the new tact for me or exploration for me are these more experiential things than, you know, I take your point, um, that I put a system in place. You know, I've managed to manage my recovery. I have all the right things, but this is what is maybe lacking or the next step, however one wants to look at it. And so definitely want to explore one or all or different, the way I've been doing yoga. The reason I love yoga so much is it gets you out of your mind and into your body,
Yeah. Yeah.
And so if some of these other things can move the mind aside and get to the junk, gunk, whatever we want to call it,
Mm-hmm.
that, led me here, that would be great. And
The, it's pretty amazing to me, like all the years I've done therapy, at times it's frustrating. It's like, man, I want people to heal, but they're just not. But it's amazing to me, like there are these things out there that actually do work. And I've seen people shift from a state of constant fear and shame to places of peace and self acceptance. And just a couple weeks ago, a little over a week ago, I had an event where we did breath work and some psychedelic work, and some of the answers people were getting and some of the things that they were feeling were miraculous. It was just awesome, and they experience things that they've never have in their life, opposite to their shame. And so it's there for the taking. And if your wife is working her own recovery and you start stepping into doing some of this work and these things, if she might do some of the things as well, right? And then you can connect with that. Or at least she could be a place where you go do this and then you come home and you say, you won't believe what I experienced. Can I tell you all about it? um, and she's a place where you can process this and talk about it and just love each other in that intimate place of healing. That's awesome. That's absolutely, if that can happen, why not, right?
right.
So, Harris, do you have any last questions for me?
No, you've given me a lot to think about, and really appreciate the time and the empathy and concern,
I I love recovery, and your story of these relapses and then coming back and coming back again. Like I know how hard it is, and I know what that takes. And we're talking about you taking a next step in recovery, and I think there is a next step to take, but I don't think that discounts the hard work that you've done, and that you absolutely are a fighter. And so it's awesome that you came on today and practiced courage to come here. So I really appreciate that. And I'm here as a resource for you, Harris. If you need anything, I'm happy to help in any way. And yeah, until next time, you guys, if this was helpful, please share it or leave a review and mention Harris and thank him. And until next time, keep on keeping on.